He was the angel-faced kid from a broken town who became the voice of a generation and then burned out in the most tragic way imaginable. But the story of Kurt Cobain isn't just about fame and music. It's about a boy who grew up with extraordinary talent and unbearable pain. It's about the rise of Nirvana, the collapse of grunge, and a loss that still raises more questions than answers. Because to this day, some believe Kurt's end wasn't what it seemed, and the deeper you look, the darker the story becomes. The Gray Beginnings. Kurt Donald Cobain was born on February 20th, 1967, in the small industrial town of Aberdeen, Washington, a place where the air smelled of sawdust, the sky was permanently gray, and the culture was as conservative as concrete. In Aberdeen, men worked in mills, played sports, and served in the army. A sensitive, artistic child? That was considered a weakness, almost a threat. Kurt's parents, Don and Wendy, were just teenagers when they had him. They struggled with money, but Wendy wanted her son to look like he belonged to something better. She bought him colorful clothes, even a video camera, trying to give him a happy childhood despite the poverty. From the very beginning, Kurt was different. By age 2, he was singing Beatles songs he heard on TV. By 4, he was banging on toy drums like he was born for rhythm. Relatives couldn't believe his ear for music. He could hear a melody once, then repeat it on piano without a single lesson. But along with the talent came something stranger. Kurt invented an imaginary friend named Bada. He spoke to him, played with him, treated him as real. His parents grew worried about gossip in their small town, so one day they told Kurt that Bada had gone to fight in Vietnam. Kurt stopped speaking to his invisible friend, but he never forgot him, and decades later, Bada's name would appear again in the most chilling way possible. Broken home, broken child. When Kurt was 9, his world fell apart. His parents' marriage collapsed in violent arguments. His once loving family split, and Kurt was forced to choose who to live with. He picked his father, Don, but instead of stability, he got a life of constant change. Don dated different women, eventually remarried, and gave more love to his new stepchildren than to Kurt. The boy who once sang and laughed turned quiet, angry, and withdrawn. At his mother's home, things were no better. Her new boyfriend was aggressive, and Kurt disliked him. Wherever he went, he felt like an unwanted guest in his own family. He began to draw disturbing pictures, isolate himself, and show signs of deep sadness. Doctors diagnosed him with hyperactivity and prescribed medication to calm him. Some fans later claimed this was the beginning of his destructive relationship with substances. Others say the real problem was emotional neglect, not biology. Either way, the cracks were widening. By his early teens, Kurt had already told classmates, "I'm going to be a famous rock star, and then I'll die at 27. At the time, people laughed. Later, it felt like prophecy. Teenage years, outcast and rebel. At 14, Kurt was already experimenting with alcohol and other risky habits. He vandalized property, got into trouble, and was arrested more than once. In school, he drifted away from sports, failed classes, and spent all his time drawing grotesque cartoons or blasting punk rock. One of the biggest myths around Cobain comes from this time, the claim that he lived under a bridge in Aberdeen. He even wrote about it in interviews and later in songs. The truth? He never really lived there. Too fragile, too weak to survive in such conditions. Friends said he sometimes smoked or hung out under the bridge, but mostly he crashed in garages, abandoned houses, or on couches. Yet the story of the boy under the bridge became part of his legend, blurring reality and self-created myth, something Kurt often did. By his mid-teens, he had a guitar from his uncle Chuck. Music became his only real escape. When everything else seemed hostile, music gave him power, but he was already carrying that strange obsession with death. He told people, "I'll go out like Hendrix." At 27, it was both bravado and something darker, almost as if he was writing his own script. Birth of Nirvana. In the mid-80s, Kurt met Krist Novoselic, a tall, goofy bass player with a similar sense of humor. Together, they began jamming in shabby apartments and garages. One infamous spot was the so-called Pink Apartment, walls painted pink, filled with chaos, music, and strange art. This was where Kurt began writing the songs that would change the world. Their early gigs were disasters. At one party, Krist smeared himself in fake blood and caused a scene while Kurt kept playing. The crowd was horrified, but word spread. This band was wild, unpredictable, unforgettable. Out of the chaos, Nirvana was born. In 1989, they released their first album, Bleach, on the indie label Sub Pop. It was raw, heavy, and cost only about $600 to record. It didn't make them rich, but it earned them a cult following. Still, Kurt was restless. He once said, "I'll make an album bigger than you too." And in 1991, he did exactly that. The explosion. Nevermind. September 24th, 1991. Nirvana released Nevermind. At first, nobody expected much, but then MTV picked up Smells Like Teen Spirit. Within weeks, the song was everywhere. Radios, TV, school dances, malls. Teenagers who felt lost, angry, or ignored suddenly had an anthem. Kurt's voice, raw, tortured, and defiant, became their voice. Within months, Nevermind knocked Michael Jackson off the top of the Billboard charts. Grunge exploded worldwide. Flannel shirts, dirty jeans, long hair, all of it became a uniform for a new generation. Bands like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains followed, but Nirvana was the spearhead. But Kurt hated the fame. He sabotaged TV performances by singing badly on purpose. He mocked journalists, refused to play the game, and told friends he felt like a sellout. Instead of saving him, success made him more isolated. Fame, for Kurt, was a prison with screaming fans as the bars. Courtney Love, partner or villain? In 1991, Kurt met Courtney Love, lead singer of the band Hole. Their connection was instant, intense, and chaotic. They married in 1992 in Hawaii, Kurt wearing pajamas. That same year, their daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, was born. But the relationship was drenched in controversy. A Vanity Fair article accused them of using substances while Courtney was pregnant, sparking a custody battle. For months, child services forced them to raise Frances under supervision. To the public, they were rock's most dysfunctional couple. To Kurt, Courtney was both soulmate and torment. Some saw Courtney as his savior, others as his destroyer. Rumors swirled that she encouraged his worst habits, that she thrived on chaos. Years later, conspiracy theorists would even accuse her of involvement in his death. Nothing was ever proven, but suspicion has never gone away. And the more she spoke to the media, the more fuel the fire had. The spiral into darkness. By 1993, Kurt's stomach pains were unbearable. Doctors never found a cause. He claimed substances were the only thing that dulled it. Whether true or just an excuse, his dependence deepened. Bandmates grew frustrated. Courtney struggled with him, sometimes joining him in the spiral. In March 1994, in Rome, Kurt collapsed after taking a dangerous mix of pills and alcohol. Officially, it was called an accident, but close friends believe it was his first serious attempt to leave this world. Just weeks later, he fled rehab in Los Angeles. On April 5, 1994, in his Seattle home, Kurt Cobain's life came to a tragic end. Beside him lay a farewell letter addressed to Bada, his childhood imaginary friend. In it, he wrote, "Better to burn out than fade away." He was 27. Death or something else. The official story, he ended his own life. But from the beginning, doubts arose. Some claimed the note didn't read like a farewell until the very last lines. Handwriting experts argued part of it may have been added later. The details of how he was found sparked endless questions. A private investigator hired by Courtney Love herself later accused her of foul play. He claimed Kurt was planning to divorce her, and that money and custody battles may have been at stake. And still, there are those who believe Kurt staged his own disappearance, wanting to escape fame, not life. Most evidence supports the official story, yet the inconsistencies, combined with Courtney's chaotic reputation, have kept the conspiracy alive for decades. And in the court of public opinion, the case is still open. Kurt Cobain remains a symbol of contradiction. The boy who wanted love but pushed it away. The star who craved success but despised fame. The man who gave a generation a voice but couldn't save his own. But if you strip away the chaos, the scandals, and even the tragedy, what remains is the music. Because in the end, the songs are what kept him alive for millions of fans. They carried his pain, his sarcasm, and his brilliance. And decades later, they still shake the world just as hard as they did in the 90s. So let's look at the 10 greatest Kurt Cobain tracks that continue to rock today. 10 greatest hits that still rock. Number 10, About a Girl, 1989. From Bleach, it showed his pop instincts under the grunge noise. Kurt once admitted he worried it was too Beatles-like, but that's why it still shines. Number 9, In Bloom, 1991, meant to mock clueless macho fans, but ironically, those same fans screamed it the loudest. Pure Cobain irony. Number 8, Pennyroyal Tea, 1993, a haunting reflection of his chronic pain and depression. Planned as a single, pulled after his death, fans now see it as one of his rawest confessions. Number 7, Heart-Shaped Box, 1993, a twisted love song to Courtney, angry, tender, and disturbing all at once. It still feels like being pulled into his storm. Number 6, All Apologies, 1993, gentle and resigned, as if he was saying goodbye. The refrain, "All in all is all we are," feels like a closing statement. Number 5, Dumb, 1993, short, sad, strangely sweet. Proof that even in simplicity, Kurt's honesty cut deeper than any scream. Number 4, The Man Who Sold the World, 1993, MTV Unplugged, a Bowie cover that Kurt completely reinvented. Many fans today know the song only through his aching, fragile delivery. Number 3, Where Did You Sleep Last Night, 1993, MTV Unplugged. His chilling final scream in that performance still gives goosebumps. It's not just music, it's a man tearing open his soul. Number 2, Come As You Are, 1991, hypnotic, mysterious, endlessly replayed. The lyrics, "And I swear that I don't have a gun," gained eerie weight after his passing. Number 1, one. Smells Like Teen Spirit, 1991, the anthem that changed everything. Meant as a joke, it became a revolution. Even now, one riff is enough to electrify a room. Kurt once said, "I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not." In the end, that's what defined him. His music was raw, honest, and unapologetic. His life was messy, tragic, and short, but his impact was eternal. And maybe that's why, 30 years later, people still argue about what really happened in that greenhouse. Was it the demons inside him, the pressures of fame, or something darker? The truth may never be fully known. But one thing is certain: Kurt Cobain didn't just burn out. He left behind a fire that still burns in every kid who picks up a guitar and believes their voice can matter.